The train screeched to a halt in the dusty town of Clearwater Creek. Inside, a young woman named Clara sat frozen, clutching the small suitcase that carried her entire life. Her heart trembled like the lace veil in her hands. She'd come as a mail-order bride, her only chance to escape poverty and shame back east. Yet as she peered out the window, the sight of the man waiting by the station made her breath catch. Broad shoulders, hat tilted low, eyes unreadable. Was this her future, or her ruin? Clara's feet refused to move. Outside, the cowboy stood silently beside his horse, the afternoon sun drawing golden streaks across his weathered face. He looked nothing like the kind letters she'd received, gentle words written by rough hands. She'd expected warmth. Instead, she felt a cold fear rising. How could she marry a stranger? Still, behind his stillness, something tender flickered, like light behind a closed door. The porter asked if she'd step down, but her legs wouldn't obey. Ethan Ward, the cowboy in question, waited quietly, hat in hand. The townsfolk stared, whispering, watching the bride who wouldn't leave the train. Ethan had never been a man of words. He'd written those letters late at night, fumbling through loneliness, searching for someone to share the silence. Now that she was here, he felt smaller than ever. He could see the fear in her eyes. And so he stayed still, patient as a sunrise, hoping she'd see the honesty behind his quiet stance. The conductor called her name again, voice sharp with impatience. "Miss Clara Evans, this is your stop." Tears welled up in her eyes. She wanted to believe in hope, but hope had tricked her before. Her father's debts, her mother's tears, the lies of men who promised protection, all ghosts whispered inside her chest. She pressed her hand to the glass. Beyond it, Ethan lifted his head slightly. Their eyes met for the first time. For a moment, the noise of the world fell away. The crowd began to drift, tired of the scene. Ethan took a slow step forward. "Ma'am," he said softly, his voice deep but gentle, "you don't have to come down, till you're ready." The words struck something inside her. No one had ever given her time. No one had spoken without demanding. A single tear escaped, tracing the curve of her cheek. He wasn't forcing her, he was waiting. And that quiet patience was what made her finally rise from her seat. Her boots touched the ground with a soft thud. For a heartbeat, she couldn't breathe. Ethan's shadow loomed tall beside her, yet she didn't feel threatened. He held out his hand, not in demand, but in quiet offer. "Welcome to Clearwater," he murmured. She stared at his rough, calloused palm, trembling. Then slowly, she placed her hand in his. His touch was warm, solid. Something fragile inside her began to steady, though she didn't yet understand why. They walked through town in silence. The dirt road crunched beneath their steps, the air filled with the scent of hay and distant rain. People watched from porches, gossip running faster than wind. Clara could feel their eyes judging her, mail-order bride, city girl, poor fool. Ethan led her toward a waiting wagon. "It's a bit of a ride to the ranch," he said quietly. She nodded, unsure how to reply. The thought of miles of open land with this stranger both frightened and calmed her. As the wagon rolled away, Clara dared a glance at him. His hands were steady on the reins, veins like rivers carved by work. He wasn't handsome in a polished way, but there was something steadfast about him. "You expected someone different," he said without looking at her. She swallowed hard. "Your letters were kind," she whispered. "I thought you'd smile more." For the first time, he did, barely, but enough to make her heart trip over itself. "Smiling don't come easy," he said, "but honesty does." The journey stretched long beneath an amber sky. The wind carried the sound of crickets, the promise of nightfall. Clara's thoughts wandered to the ranch. What if it was too harsh, too lonely? What if he changed once they were alone? She hugged her shawl tight, the fear whispering again. But then Ethan spoke, quietly, "You can change your mind anytime, Miss Evans. Ain't no one gonna keep you where you don't wanna be." She turned to him, stunned. No man had ever said such a thing. That night, when they arrived at the ranch, the stars burned bright over the plains. Ethan led her to the small cabin beside his main house. "You'll have this space for yourself," he said. "We'll talk more in the morning. You've had a long ride." Clara nodded, too tired and too moved to speak. As he turned to leave, she called softly, "Ethan." He paused. "Thank you, for waiting." He tipped his hat, his eyes meeting hers with quiet warmth. "Ain't no trouble waitin' for something worth it." Inside, Clara sank onto the narrow bed. The wooden walls creaked like whispers of the unknown future. She looked at her reflection in the small window, dust-streaked, weary, and utterly alone. Yet beneath the loneliness, a flicker of something new stirred. Safety. For the first time in years, she wasn't running from someone, she was stepping toward something. Outside, the low hum of his horse echoed through the night, steady as the heart she'd soon learn to trust. Morning sunlight spilled across the plains, touching Clara's window like a warm greeting. She awoke to the smell of coffee and the distant clatter of hooves. For a moment, she forgot she was a bride to a stranger. Then reality swept back in, a marriage arranged by letters, built on hope and fear. Yet as she stepped outside, she saw Ethan tending to a lame calf with a gentleness that made her chest ache. Maybe, she thought, kindness could wear rough hands after all. Days turned into a rhythm of quiet learning. Clara helped in the kitchen, fed the chickens, learned to ride the calmer horses. Ethan never raised his voice, never demanded affection. He simply worked beside her, silent but steady. In the evenings, they'd share supper by lamplight, the air thick with unspoken words. She caught herself watching his face when he wasn't looking, memorizing the way the firelight softened his eyes. A strange comfort began to bloom where fear once lived. But every story that starts with hope must test it. One afternoon, a rider galloped into the yard, dust flying, voice sharp. "Ward, you got trouble brewing in town." Ethan wiped his hands, his jaw tightening. Clara froze as she recognized the man, Silas Crane, her old creditor's foreman. Her past had found her. She shrank behind the doorframe, heart pounding. "She owes money," Silas sneered. "And I aim to collect. Don't matter if she's your wife now." Ethan's hand curled slowly into a fist. Clara's voice trembled as she stepped forward. "Silas, please, I'll pay it back. I swear I will." He laughed, cruel and cold. "You never could. That's why you ran." Ethan stepped between them. "She's under my roof," he said evenly. "You'll speak respectful, or you'll leave." Silas spat into the dirt. "You don't scare me, cowboy. I'll take what's owed, one way or another." His eyes lingered on Clara in a way that made her stomach twist. Ethan's silence turned to steel. "Then you'll answer to me." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. The memory of Silas's threat gnawed at her peace. She'd brought danger to Ethan's doorstep, the one man who'd shown her decency. She'd packed her small bag, tears blurring her vision. She couldn't let him get hurt because of her. But as she opened the cabin door, she found Ethan sitting on the porch, rifle resting on his knee, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Thought you might try to leave," he said quietly. "You don't have to run anymore, Clara." Her breath caught. "You don't understand, Ethan. They'll ruin you for helping me." He shook his head slowly. "You think I built this ranch by running from trouble. I ain't letting a good woman face wolves alone." His words broke something inside her. For years she'd carried the weight of being unwanted, unworthy. Now, in his calm defiance, she saw what love could be, not loud or desperate, but patient and fierce. She sank to her knees, sobbing. He set his rifle aside and drew her close. When dawn came, Silas returned with 2 men. The confrontation was short but fierce. Ethan stood his ground, refusing to let them near the ranch. Words turned to fists, and fists to gunfire. Clara watched in horror as dust rose and horses screamed. Then, as quick as it began, it was over. Silas lay on the ground, wounded but alive, his pride more broken than his body. Ethan, bleeding from a scrape on his arm, looked at her and smiled. "Told you I could handle myself," he said softly. In the aftermath, the sheriff took Silas away, and peace returned to Clearwater Creek. That night, Clara sat by the fire, wrapping a bandage around Ethan's arm. Her fingers trembled. "You risked everything for me," she whispered. He looked at her, eyes warm beneath the brim of his hat. "Wasn't a risk," he said. "Just a choice. You're my wife, Clara. And I'd choose you again, even if you never stepped down from that train." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "When I came here, I thought I was saving myself from misery," she said. "But I think I was being led to mercy." He smiled faintly, touching her hand. "We both were." Outside, the wind hummed through the grass, carrying the scent of rain and new beginnings. For the first time, she leaned into him fully, no fear left between them, only the quiet understanding that love had finally found its home. Weeks later, the ranch buzzed with gentle life. Clara's laughter mingled with the lowing of cattle, her dresses fluttering in the open air. She had learned to bake bread that rose golden in the oven and to ride beside Ethan at dusk when the horizon burned orange. He still didn't smile much, but when he did, it was only for her. And every time his rough hand brushed hers, she remembered that trembling moment at the train, the day she couldn't step down until kindness reached out.